Na 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 na. Hey YouTube, my name is Vin. I like to play games, and welcome back to another episode of Vin Plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. This is my Week 12 recap show, where I go over how well my team did, my general thoughts on any of the games I watched, and who I'm targeting on the waiver wire for this week. Quick little side note, this week is not officially over yet. The Ravens and Steelers game has been moved to tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, December 2nd. So the week will not end until that game has been played, and consequently, the waiver wire one will not be run until Friday morning. So yeah, we will not see any players get taken off of the waiver wire until basically Thursday to Friday night to Friday morning, essentially. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into our matchup. As you can see up top, we ended up being victorious yet again. Woot woot, insert victory dance gifs and music here. We ended up really outperforming our projections. We were projected to score, I believe, around 130 points. So our players did super well this week, or a few of them did. Actually, a couple of them really underperformed, but we'll get into that a little bit later. My opponent, Booyah, also actually ended up exceeding his projections as well. He was projected to get, I believe, around 120 points. And actually, it's kind of sad for him because that 132 point score, I believe, was the second or third highest in the league for the week. So it always sucks to run up against the top scorer for the league, which I ended up being this week, thankfully for us. And hopefully not the last time this happens, knock on wood. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into our individual matchups, starting with Aaron Rodgers and Devonta Adams and the Packers in general. They just totally stomped on the Chicago Bears. The Bears were actually without Akeem Hicks. He has been injured, and so he did not play. And, consequently, it was really felt during this game and for his team because the Chicago Bears really had problems stopping the run. But anyways, Aaron Rodgers did what Aaron Rodgers does. 4 touchdowns, 211 yards. That's not too many yards, but he was super efficient. He rushes a little bit, but yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I cannot. This is the start, or this is another one of his tough matchups here. Chicago, actually next week against Philadelphia. That shouldn't be too bad, although Philadelphia is a pretty tough matchup. But between Chicago and Indianapolis, these are probably will be the 2 toughest matchups for the rest of the year for him. So yeah, it should be pretty smooth sailing for Aaron Rodgers from now on, knock on wood, for the rest of the season. Going into Devonta Adams. Devonta Adams did do well, and he looked really good. He did have a couple of drop passes during this game, but all in all, he looked super good. The thing is that he didn't really need to do much during this game just because they were up so high. Well, they were in control of pretty much the entire game ever since the second quarter. I want to say during the middle of the second quarter, they pretty much ran away with it, or you could pretty much sense, or you could feel in the Chicago Bears, or see in the body language of the Chicago Bears, that they were pretty much done after the second quarter. After the half was over, yeah, their spirit was more or less broken. But anyways, Devonta Adams did score a touchdown, 9 targets, which is alright, and 61 yards. That's probably one of his lowest totals of the year. But again, considering the game script, they really didn't need him to do too much during this game. Going down to Robert Woods. Robert Woods did get 12 targets, which is fantastic. I think that might be one of his highest target counts of the year. And you know what? He was Mr. Reliable yet again. They just use him in so many different ways. 8 rushing yards. He had 1 rush attempt, I believe. Yeah, 1 rushing attempt. 7 receptions for 80 receiving yards. But he was catching the ball. I think he caught a deep pass here for like 20 plus yards. He was catching the ball behind the line of scrimmage and trying to create yards after the catch that way as well. They just used him all over the field. And looking forward to his schedule, he has a good schedule going forward. Arizona next week, and then New Jersey, and then Seattle to finish out the fantasy playoffs if we make it that far. Knock on wood that we do. But yeah, Robert Woods, I don't regret starting him here, but actually somebody on our bench outperformed him, which I'll get into a little bit later. But let's go ahead and look over to our opponent's side. Russell Wilson actually vastly underperformed during this game. I believe he was projected to score around 20, okay, it says right there, 27 points, which he did not get. But then again, I think this was a function of game script for him. Like the Packers, Seattle was up pretty big for most of this game, and he didn't need to do much. He didn't really need to throw all that much. And actually, when he was throwing to DK Metcalf, who seemed to be always open. Man, DK Metcalf is a total beast. Like I want to say that probably 80% of those passing yards were to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf had a stupidly huge game. But anyways, Russell Wilson did not have a huge game, and he really didn't need to have a big game anyways, because yeah, that, like I said, Philadelphia just does not look good. Their offense is a disaster right now, and they really showed it during this game. It's like, I think this is the first Philadelphia game that I really sat down and watched. Well, actually, I watched week 1. Philadelphia's week 1 matchup against Washington, and they didn't look too bad during that game, but man, during this game they looked really bad. Their offensive line is pretty much decimated, and I think it's really having an effect on Carson Wentz. He really looks kind of shell-shocked out there. But anyways, good for us. Russell Wilson did not perform to expectations. Going down the list, I didn't really read much about DJ Moore during this game. I know he did get hurt at the end of the game. It's kind of questionable whether or not he is going to be back next week. AJ Brown, man, this guy is really good too. And he really outperformed outperformed projections during this game as well. But super efficient, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So actually, a return touchdown. I didn't really realize that, but yeah, that really elevated his numbers here. Like we said during our last video, though, it's AJ Brown, super efficient. He only needs a couple of catches to make a week's worth of points, and he totally did that this week. Let's go ahead and go back to our side with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is super good at football. This was a smash matchup for him, and he totally did smash. 19 rushing attempts with 140 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown. He did get 3 targets here, which is a little bit surprising. But yeah, Nick Chubb, what can we say? He's in our lineup in perpetuity, probably for the rest of the year. Well, he has one bad matchup for the rest of the year against Baltimore, but because since Baltimore had that plague outbreak, we don't even know how many of their players are going to be back for that game. We'll see how that goes, but I can't see myself really sitting Nick Chubb for the rest of the year. Let's go ahead and go on. Man, Antonio Gibson, I did not get to watch this game. This was a Thanksgiving game, so I was kind of busy with some family stuffs going on. I wish I would have watched this game though, because 3 touchdowns for Antonio Gibson. I was keeping tabs on the score, and it really looked like the game script really fell into his favor during this game. Washington was up for most of the game, and they were up pretty big during the second half of this game. So the biggest thing that sticks out to me though, he did get 20 rush attempts and put up a ton of yards on the ground, but he got 7 targets with 5 receptions. It didn't lead to much, 21 receiving yards, but if this signals a change for him, that he will now be receiving work instead of J.D. McKissick getting all the receiving work, then man, Antonio Gibson is going to smash, and he will be a must-start for the rest of the year. We're not entirely sure, but yeah, and his matchups for the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty tough, Pittsburgh and San Francisco. But if he is catching passes along with getting that workload on the ground, then I don't see how we could sit him. We might sit him next week just to see what happens, especially since it's up against Pittsburgh. I believe Pittsburgh is the toughest run defense in the league right now. But yeah, if he's catching 3 to 5 passes next week against Pittsburgh, then yeah, there's no way that we're we're going to be sitting him moving forward. Let's go ahead and take a peek on the other side. Duke Johnson, what can we say about Duke Johnson? He scored a touchdown, so that's why he has a good game here. See, looking at his numbers, 9 rush attempts, 37 rushing yards. Yeah, that is not good. 4 targets though, and he actually did catch his, he got most of his points from a 37-yard touchdown reception, and that's why his numbers are inflated here. He did have a good matchup against Detroit though, so can't fault that. Actually, I missed Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders really underperformed here. They actually didn't use him that much. I think he fell victim to a bad game script since they were behind by so much so early in the game. The Philadelphia Eagles really didn't look to run all that much. They passed a lot. But you know, Miles Sanders is supposed to be game proof because he does get a lot of receptions. See, so 2 receptions, 3 targets. Well, he normally gets a lot of targets, a few targets and receptions, especially for a running back. But yeah, I think he fell victim to game script here, and not only game script, but just fell victim to the Philadelphia offense. The Philadelphia offense just looks completely awful right now, and yeah, they just can't get anything going. But yeah, Miles Sanders underperformed this week. Thank goodness for us. And let's go ahead and move on down to our tight end, Darren Waller. He underperformed during this game as well. I didn't get the chance to watch this game, but from what I've read, the game script was really awful during this game too, and very surprising. Atlanta hopped out to a huge lead and pretty much dominated this entire game, both on offense and defense. Mostly on defense though, and not only that, but the Raiders offense couldn't get anything going. Derek Carr came back to earth. You know, it's like just when you think that Derek Carr has turned a corner and that he might be pretty good, you find out that that corner is basically just 90 degrees straight into the ground. But anyways, Derek Carr did throw a couple of interceptions. There was a bunch more. I believe there was a couple of fumbles, including one by our very own Josh Jacobs. So yeah, very bad game script here. I've been reading narratives online and from analysts saying that perhaps the Raiders fell flat because they were still coming down off that high versus playing so well against the Chiefs, and so maybe they underestimated the Falcons during this game. All in all, though, it really seems like just a really bad game for them. I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I'm just kind of taking this as at a game at a time, and this ended up being just a tough game for them. Let's go ahead and jump over to the other side. Austin Hooper, yeah, like we said earlier with Duke Johnson, what can we say? Austin Hooper scored a touchdown, and that is why he has a pretty good game. See, he only got 2 targets, 13 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, you know, it's just unlucky for us that this happened to be one of the games that he did score a touchdown, although he did have a good matchup against Jacksonville. Let's go ahead and jump to our flex. Yeah, Josh Jacobs, he had a pretty poor game, only 7 rushing attempts. Again, they were behind for most of this game, so that was a negative game script for them and him. Josh Jacobs doesn't really get much receiving work. He doesn't get many targets, so if the Raiders are behind, then they will mostly lean on other backs, mostly Jalen Richard, although I do not believe Jalen Richard was active during this game. I think he was injured, so they probably just leaned on their passing game. Although, you know, with only 6 points scored, 2 field goals, essentially they can get anything going on the ground or in the air. So I'm more or less just chalking this up to a bad game, a flukishly type bad game. Let's go ahead and go over to the other side. Will Fuller, man. Will Fuller and my opponent's flex. Will Fuller went absolutely nuclear during this game. Oh my goodness, he went Super Saiyan mode. 7 targets, 6 receptions, 171 yards, and 2 touchdown receptions. Yeah, he was always open during this game, and Deshaun Watson found him seemingly on every play. Every big play, that is, anyways. But big news here, Will Fuller is actually done for the year because he was caught using PEDs. He has been suspended. He actually put out something on social media. I believe it was his Instagram that said that he accidentally he took some supplements from a trainer, and that trainer did not tell him, or he was unaware that some of those substances in those supplements were banned substances by the NFL. So consequently, the NFL has suspended him for the next 6 games. So he is for all intents and purposes, he is done for the season, and I believe he will be suspended for the first game of next season as well, which really sucks for him, and not only him, but Deshaun Watson owners as well, because he was having a fantastic year. Like, look at he was one of the most consistently good wide receivers this year. Just look at those numbers, man. 10 plus points every single week. Really good. And it sucks that he's suspended, but yeah, he ended up blowing up this week, and the good thing for us that we didn't end up losing because of it. Let's go ahead and go on. Our kicker, Younghoe Koo, man, 19 points. He might have been the MVP of this game. Look at all the field goals he kicked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 field goals plus 4 extra points. And you know what? My league scoring here, I do not give more points for the longer field goals. So, you know, the 50 plus yard field goal, the 30 to 39 yard field goals, all of those are worth 3 points. All field goals are worth 3 points in my league. I know some leagues, they give more points the farther the field goal is. So yeah, any place that Younghoe, you played Younghoe, you know, he might have given you like 25 points, 25 plus points this week. Man, Younghoe, I'm glad I paid up the one fab for him because he really contributed to us winning this week. Looking over to the other side, Dan Bailey, that's a pretty average score there at 8 points. That's reaching his projection. Our defense, the Rams, you know, there's just a lot of playmakers on that team with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And the thing is, even if they individually aren't racking up the sacks or the interceptions, they are making it a lot easier for the rest of the team to perform well on defense and to pick up those sacks and receptions. They ended up getting 2 sacks, as you can see there, an interception, 2 fumble receptions, and yeah, for one of those fumble receptions ended up going for a touchdown. Raheem Mostert fumbled during one of his carries, and was picked up and ran in for a touchdown. The Los Angeles Rams had truly a light defense, and moving forward, they do have a tough matchup against Arizona. But again, you know, I have them, and I've been hanging on to them because of their playoff matchups. Week 14 against New England isn't great, but New Jersey during Week 15, that is a super good matchup. Then going over to the other side, Green Bay Packers, they pretty much Green Bay pretty much dominated both ends of the ball. Like I said earlier, after the first half, the Chicago Bears were pretty much demoralized for the rest of the game. So not a lot of effort being put up. And not only that, actually Mitch Trubisky did start this game because Nick Foles is injured. And man, Trubisky or Nick Foles, but they both are pretty bad, have been pretty bad this year. And particularly Trubisky, you know, he does run, which is cool, which does give him some points. But even his throws are just, even his throws to wide open receivers, it's especially during this game, it seemed that they were making these diving acrobatic catches and they weren't covered. They were like wide open, and they still had to make these diving acrobatic catches just to grab a wide open pass from Trubisky. And it seemed maybe it was because, you know, on the other side of the field was Aaron Rodgers, who is able to throw passes to his receivers in stride. It seemed like for Trubisky, even when somebody was wide open, a better passer would have been able to pass it to that receiver and have them catch it in stride, but it ended up them having to dive for balls and just end up being on the ground so that a defender could just run up and touch them on the ground. So didn't even have any chance for for any yards coming after the catch, that is. But anyways, Green Bay ended up doing really well as well. Their defense, that is, a fumble reception, a touchdown as well. So good thing for us that didn't end up biting us in the butt as well. Notable guys on our bench, we had a few people perform pretty well. Allen Robinson, garbage time is garbage time. Although, he did put up a few points when the game was competitive. I believe he scored a touchdown during the beginning of the second quarter. So, most of his yards and his second touchdown happened when Green Bay was well ahead of the Bears. So there was really no hope for them to come back. Chris Carson as well. Chris Carson did come back from injury. He looked great, although they didn't use him all that much. I believe he was probably they were probably easing him back in. He got out carried by Carlos Hyde, but he outproduced Carlos Hyde with those fewer carries. I think on top of him coming back from injury and on top of the game script, since Seattle was pretty much on top, had that game well in hand for more or less the whole game. They didn't really need Chris Carson to do much, and thusly they didn't really use him all that much during this game. I'm expecting his workload to really ramp up in the coming weeks now that he's back from injury. Evan Engram also had a good game, 13 points. He did not score a touchdown, which is great. 6 receptions, 129 yards. Well, not scoring a touchdown isn't great, but it's a good sign that he didn't need a touchdown to have a good game. The only reservations moving forward is that Daniel Jones did get injured during this game, so we're not sure that he is going to play next week or when he's going to come back. And if Daniel Jones isn't playing, then not that Daniel Jones is a great quarterback, but I don't know if we could trust Evan Engram moving forward. And we might end up dropping him this week anyways to make room for the guys on our injured reserve spots because they are coming back. But anyways, moving on, Deebo Samuel did look great in his first game back from injury. He is a yards after catch machine. So he ended up scoring 18 points. How many receptions did he have? He had tons. He had 13 targets and 11 receptions for 133 yards. I believe did he not score a touchdown? I thought he scored a touchdown. I suppose he didn't score a touchdown, but yeah, all on the ground or all through the air, technically through the air, but most of his passes were behind the line of scrimmage. So yeah, Deebo Samuel, he is really good, and I'm glad that we have held on to him for as long as we have. Quick note: Raheem Mostert also looked really good, and he got his full complement, his full workload. I believe he got 16 attempts, which is more in line with what he's been getting when he's been healthy. Wow, has he only really played 4 games? I didn't realize that. But anyways, he looked good. He runs like he's been shot out of a cannon. They did mix in work between him and Jeff Wilson, mostly Jeff Wilson. I don't recall seeing J.D. McKissick out there too much, but they did mix in the other running back as well. But yeah, he totally passed the eye test. Raheem Mostert is back. And a quick side note, J.K. Dobbins will actually be eligible to play tomorrow, even though he tested positive for COVID. Since he tested positive on Monday, it has the requisite 10 days has passed since that positive test. So now he is eligible to play tomorrow for Week 12. Not that it matters for us, but I just thought that was kind of funny that the game has been postponed for so long that he is eligible to play now. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a peek at our standings. Although the week is not technically over, with our win this week, that should catapult us to second place. The drafted did end up losing. Let's go ahead and take a peek at the matchups here. So yeah, the drafted lost to Rated R Superstar, and also notable, It's Going Down did lose, so that bolsters our lead over him as well. but Vaughn, like Donkey Kong, did end up winning. He did beat It's Going Down, so we should move up a spot to second, and hopefully we could hang on to it for that week 13 or week 14 rather bye at the start of the playoffs. So yeah, it's looking pretty good for us. Knock on wood that it continues. And as far as the waiver wire is concerned, there's really nobody that we would want to pick up. And actually, we'll need to decide who we want to drop, since we are going to be activating J.K. Dobbins and Raheem Mostert. But for the most part, I do have two defenses. I actually ended up picking up the Cleveland defense, I believe on Friday, since somebody dropped him, dropped them, I should say, just for their playoff matchups as well. They do play both New York teams to end the year. I'm mostly looking at that Week 16 matchup against New Jersey. But between our two defenses, and we really don't need anybody on our squad. My first thought would be perhaps to make a bid for Josh Jacobs' handcuff, who is Devonta Booker. But considering how deep we are at running back, we have DeAndre Swift, we have Chris Carson, we have J.K. Dobbins and Raheem Mostert. You know what? It's like I like those guys. I think I'd like those guys, that is, as opposed to starting Devonta Booker. So I don't believe we will be making any waiver claims here. Yeah, it's pretty. We could save some of our fab for this week. And with that said, I think we'll end the show here. Thanks again for watching another episode of Vin Plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. My name is Vin. I like to play games, and I'll see you next time.